Good evening and welcome to The Pulse. Later in tonight's show, after more than 60 hill fires started during the Chungyong Festival and a week in which a sizable chunk of our countryside's been burning down, we look at one incident that environmentalists say prove we need a tree protection ordinance. We're also looking at the 20th anniversary of one of Hong Kong's oldest political groups and reviewing its sometimes controversial history. First though, if you're watching our earlier transmission, it might well be interrupted by a phone call from someone you'd have preferred not to call, a telephone marketeer. They have a habit of catching you at times which are, to put it mildly, inconvenient. Electronic marketing is a bane of the modern world and is rarely more visible than in the unwanted email messages many of us get every day. And the problem's even bigger than that. For every spam message you do receive, there are dozens that your internet service provider has already filtered out.
I hate to say this, is because spam works. There are consumers out there who respond to offers, who purchase products, who buy whatever the spammers are offering.
Microsoft, MSN, Hotmail, we process about 4 billion email messages a day. And out of that, 95% of it, and that will be about 3.4 billion messages, are spam messages.
It costs millions of dollars for companies that provide internet services, such as Microsoft, to process and filter unsolicited electronic messages sent to their customers. And the spammers are not likely to stop sending their unwanted messages voluntarily. Even if it looks like junk to you, not only does it cost the marketer very little money to send it, just a small response rate is required to bring hundreds of thousands of dollars in profits. You might think no one answers spam, but the United States Small Business Administration Association says that response rates are strong, ranging from 5 to 35% depending on the industry and its format. Responses to traditional mail typically range only from 1 to 3%.
Electronic means sometimes it's very important to not only to fundraising but also for campaigning as well. Take the WTO State Managerial Conference last year in Hong Kong. Oxfams as a whole, with other Oxfams all over the world, we collect 18 million signatures via internet. Some of them through our Make Trade Fair website and some through our campaigns letter. So in a way, it's not only a good means for fundraising, but it's also a good means for advocacy as well.
Over the past couple of years, government officials have been meeting electronic communications companies and members of business sector to thresh out a bill aimed at outlawing all unsolicited commercial email messages. The proposed far-reaching legislation covers more than email spam. It should also control unsolicited automated and voice calls, faxes, and SMS marketing. Any electronic message sent with marketing as one of its purposes could contravene the law. Some business operators are worried. They say that even if they send legitimate email that includes promotional ads or even their company logo or slogan, they'd be fined up to $1 million and face 5 years imprisonment. What seems to be a straightforward bill to protect consumers has businesses up in arms.
Really the definition of what is a commercial electronic message. Right now under the bill, the definition is very broad. Because it catches all sorts of messages, whether or not the primary purpose is a commercial one. And as long as one of the purposes in question is really to promote or advertise a product or a company, then it will automatically be caught. And once it's caught, then the company is obliged to comply with all the other provisions in the legislation.
We have that resolution over the pre-existing business relationship between the sender and the recipients. And this is basically, for example, in a business environment, and then as far as the sender and the recipient has created or there is an existing business relationship between them in exchanging these kind of business messages, we don't find any accommodation in the existing bill. And this is something that we would like the government to address it.
On the enforcement side, right now under the proposal, the idea is that anyone who suffers loss and damages can file a claim or a complaint against the person sending him the unsolicited email message or electronic messages, I should say. And that we feel that could open sort of a floodgate of litigation and may not be effective. And so we would propose to the government that they consider setting a minimum amount of damages that the party has suffered before he can have the right to bring a private action.
Under anti-spam legislation in the United States, only internet service providers and government agencies can initiate legal proceedings against spammers. With regard to Hong Kong's proposed new legislation, government officials and legislative councillors are currently working out the scope of the bill's coverage. They are under conflicting pressures. The public wants protection from spam. Businesses want to avoid a heavy-handed approach that will have negative effects on legitimate e-commerce by Hong Kong's many small and medium-sized enterprises. Such businesses say they will be the most affected as they don't have large enough budgets to reach consumers through television and print advertisements. Telephone marketing and email messages are their most cost-effective ways to reach potential clients and customers.
Well, if we think about a company that, for example, rents plants, there are many companies in Hong Kong that rent plants to offices. They're not going to advertise in a newspaper, they're not going to advertise on TV. They rely on fax marketing, telephone marketing, cold calling, and to some extent email. They need to reach their consumer base. If the legislation came into play the way that it's being pushed, which is to outlaw also one-to-one calls, as well as to take an opt-in approach, meaning that a consumer cannot be contacted unless they've shown a willingness to do so, it means these companies would have no way to reach their potential customers. They would effectively go out of business.
Since Hong Kong is a free market, a lot of overseas companies in Europe and US, they would like to use Hong Kong as a pilot city to test out the potential. And because of the smaller scale and the relatively lack of recognition of the brands in Hong Kong, they will use the cost-effective channels such as direct marketing, which is the kind of services they will provide. And as such, they will try to test the market, say, for 2 or 3 years. If it's proven financially, then they will spend more money on marketing, they'll hire more people. But in contrast, if it doesn't work financially for them, they will most likely pull out of Hong Kong.
The fight against unsolicited electronic messages is an uphill battle. For consumers, it's a nuisance. For some businesses, such as internet service providers, it's a major profit-damaging curse. For others, such as marketers, it's a boon. Even if a balance is struck,